All right, so let's make a formal introduction for our listeners. Good afternoon, guys. My name is Claudio. I'm calling you from Washington, D.C., from the studio in Fairfax City. We're very humble and grateful that Spotted Peccary music founder, Deborah and Howard, accepted our invitation to our show. Hey, guys, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Before I answer your question, let's go back to the beginning of two of you. Any of you were born like in a musical family, or how old were you when you began perhaps taking piano lesson or guitar lesson? How music came to your life, if you will? Any of you can answer it. All my questions are open-ended questions, so feel free to elaborate on that.
Well, I'll answer. My father was a great lover of music. And like you, he collected many different styles of music. Any genre, it didn't matter to him. The classics, classical music, secular, non-secular, rock and roll, it didn't matter to him. He has, and he's passed away now, but his record collection extension was thousands of vinyl, which are still in the home where my mother is. And then he loved electronics, so he was experimenting with the reel-to-reel tapes and cassettes and re-recording and just doing all that. So when I grew up, I got to listen to a lot of different styles of music like you, and many different genres. I'll listen to anything once, and if I like it, I'll explore it further. As far as musical training, when I was probably maybe 10, I did get piano lessons for about a year, but we were living out of the country. My father was in the military, so we traveled all over the world, and that was only for about a year, and the rest of it I'm self-taught.
Oh wow. Impressive.
And I've studied opera. I did do formal training with opera for a few years in my 20s in the San Francisco area. But the rest of it is completely self-taught. So that's my thing. I just kept exploring it and doing different things with it.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Trying different instruments, trying different sounds, and that's it.
What about you, Howard? How's your
well, both my parents are artists. My dad a visual artist, and my mom with music. Certainly in the early part of her life was music and theater, and then later on was visual arts. So I've been around music my entire life. Started off with piano lessons when I was really little, and that sort of grew into guitar and other instruments, and then a lot of just self-exploration, and same thing with the recording side of it. It was just something a friend of mine and that I grew up with, we started playing around with, making tapes and collections of music and sound down sound, and that led to some recording, which ultimately led to the very beginning work of creating music together, sort of as a collaborative process, and which then led to our first release, In the Land of Power, and we named the group of us Brain Laughter, and that started Spotted Peccary Music. That was back in the 80s. Yeah. So that was kind of the genesis of it all, but it was a continuation of just being involved with music, and music being a very important part since I was very little. Soundtracks to electronic music, hearing Wendy Carlos, when I had a fifth grade teacher that introduced us all to it at the same time, and that kind of thing. It just seemed to happen.
Yep. For me, as I mentioned before, my dad had an obscene amount of music, jazz, all jazz, Louis Armstrong stuff, Kelly Roll Morton stuff, and then stuff from Argentina, right, tango, and he told me that the first music that I listened to was a Louis Armstrong and Carlos Gardel tango when I was a baby, 3 days old, and he had a lot of stuff at home, several big trollers and all stereos, But then at 14, I kind of discovered rock and roll. It was could have been Genesis or Peter Gabriel. I don't something like that. I don't remember. And my first three records were, as I mentioned before, was Tangerine Dream, one from Pat Metheny, and then Jean-Luc Ponty. And then at the time, I realized was 14. Man, I like music. I like this kind of stuff. And then I was able to come to the United States to study, and the rest is history. You were asking me how I came across, your record.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I
I was wondering what, everybody comes to finding different parts of this music through different ways, right? Either friends recommend it or you hear it because you're searching for more music that's similar to what you enjoy.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that explorative process, I think, is a natural, organic process. But I was just curious, how long ago did you hear of Spotted Peccary or any of the artists on it, and how did you come about, discovering that?
Yeah. So at the beginning, when I began doing interviews, that was about almost 2 years ago. I began doing a lot of electronic music. Somehow, I was able to get a hold of Berlin School of Music musician in Germany, and so I began doing that kind of stuff. And then at the time, I interviewed people that play with Tangerine Dream members. I talked to at the time, Klaus Schulze was very sick, so I didn't have the chance to interview him. Edgar Froese passed away a long time ago, but then I got a hold of Manuel Goshin and many others, they're in Germany. And then via Spotify, I said, I want to expand my horizons, right? What else can I listen? Everybody mentioned, you gotta listen to, I know you like Tangerine Dream or you like soundtrack, but listen to Steve Roach. And then the guy was fascinated. Then what else? I went to Spotify, right? And you pay $10 a month and you can get a lot of stuff. And I began exploring new musician, and then I got a call of Robert Rich. And Robert Rich, which is an amazing guy, excellent personality, very, very smart guy, we get on very well. And he mentioned, have you ever heard about Spotted Peccary record label there, Oregon or Washington State? And no, I never heard of it. And then I went to the record label, and then it was, I think, and that's when I came across your record label. And some of them were in Spotify. I went to Bandcamp. Bandcamp for me is a source of information. And then you can listen to a lot of stuff. And then little by little, I began exploring that. It was different than electronic music, but I liked soundtrack as well. I have, I don't know, like 700 different movies. And then, somebody mentioned the name cinematic soundscape. I didn't understand what they were talking about. And that's when I came across the record label. And, I think Beth Hilton sent me, I don't know how he got a hold of. Yeah, I think I think I remember now. I think my first interview was with Bart Hawkins, and then he introduced me to Beth, and then from Beth, she sent me the name of 3 people. Holland Holmes was one. Then this gentleman, David Helfling, with his album Ink, which is unbelievable. And then like that, and that's what how I came across your record label. And for me, it has always been fascinated the strategy behind it, right? I go to a concert, right? Have no idea whether the artist got a good night's sleep or not, how the equipment got there or not. I buy good records, and then how a company make a record, a great album possible, right? And recently I interviewed used to be the owner for Windham Hill Records,
Will Ackerman.
Yeah, Will, which is I talked to him for almost 3 hours. a couple of weeks ago. He's a very nice guy too, and he explained the process to me. How he started, and he got lucky along the way, and he had us trying. The packaging needed to be different. The picture needed to be different. The phone needed to be different. Of course, the quality is very important, right? And that's I see the same in you guys, right? It's not an accident, right? That you can get a computer for $700, but people are paying $1,200 for a Mac, right? You can get a cup of coffee for $2, but people pay $3.75 to go to Starbucks, right? It's people pay a premium with quality. So if it's good quality and priced correctly, it's people are willing to do that. I'm an engineer by trade, and I'm a computer scientist, but I'm detail oriented, right? I need to understand why people say that, why it makes a good quality, why does it make a good album? They gotta be at the strategy behind it, how people can afford to do, and people in the end are willing to pay $3 more for an album or a CD, whatever, So,
well, I think sometimes the price of producing something to a certain quality standard sort of defines how much you have to charge, or how much the fee is to the listener for them to be able to have that experience. But I think from a more aesthetic perspective, as artists, we want to present things to a certain level that is really about making the experience translate. And you have to keep in mind, right, that a recorded product, a recorded work in the sense of art, is every bit as intangible as anything can be with art. Now, normally when you look at a painting, you see a painting, you can sometimes even smell it, but you can see the texture and how it sits in a room. It has a physicality to it. But music, being time-based, is kind of an illusion. It's just something you have to create an atmosphere for. And then we're playing it back through speakers, and who knows what room it's being played in, and all of this kind of thing. So the idea is to sort of set a stage for the music to reside in that hopefully communicates the subtler aspects of that musical experience to its fullest possible way. So we try to make the sound be as deep and big and wide and as involving, engaging, immersive as possible, while also making the package look like, hey, this is something you can take your time with. You can pay attention to it. And a lot about that visually, the imaging, the imagery that's used, and then we work real closely with the artist to make sure that we come up with something that really does communicate from their perspective. They resonate with it as an artist, what their view of what they think the music should be about. So we find that kind of balance between the music and the artist and our listeners, and also what we see as a way of trying to augment that whole experience. So it's visual, it's the different possible ways of getting the music out there, and then the music itself, the quality of it. How do we get that music to be as transparent an experience as possible?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's say if I'm a new artist, right? Well, a new musician, right? Claudio from Virginia bought some synthesizer, put something together, send it to you guys. What's the process for you to, when deciding, well, this guy fit our criteria, he has something there, but we need to tweak a mold around to be part of our culture? How the process work? How a new person will contact you and become one of the artists on the record label?
Well, it's really there's two parts.
Yeah.
If you were to send us, in this example, if you were to send us music, it wouldn't just be about the music. It would also be about you. So we have to experience the music, and then we as a team discuss it, think about it, listen to it. Does it fit what the family of music that we present, and when I say fit, not in the sense of being exactly the same as, but as it seemed like there's a natural relationship, an organic relationship with all of the other music and the other people that are associated with the label, including ourselves as artists. But also, we really kind of, the word interview seems so sterile, but it isn't really like that. It's just, we try to open up a relationship with the artists themselves. Who are they? Where did they come from? And what is their vision? They're great people that are very talented at music, and they could make music all day long. That would be, we would say, oh, that's very appropriate for Spotted Peccary music. But at the end of the day, we want to know that their heart is into it. This is their passion. And what are they going to be like? What is their view for 3 or 4 albums from now, for the music that none of us have heard, including themselves? That's right. So we're looking for longer, deeper relationships. So it's really about both. We don't just take it on the music alone. And oftentimes we are sold more by the artist and what they want to say, right, than maybe their ability to say it at that moment.
Gotcha. Yeah. I imagine that if you come across with, I don't know, people that could feel the culture of your record label, but the personality is kind of conflicted personality, you will say, well, it may not work out because this guy want to do a one-off and disappear, or he has a, kind of weird personality. He doesn't reply to email on a timely matter, or he's kind of arrogant, or whatever kind of things, right? So, you need to be picky and choosy who are you going to be representing as a record label, right?
Yes, and we're really not trying to be in any way judgmental about any person that approaches the label, because we're artists too, and we understand the process of the creative, aspects of it. But Howard is very correct. We have a team, we'll listen to the music and see if it does kind of fit into what we're already doing and the family of artists that we've curated over these many years. And then someone from our team, usually Howard will initiate a phone call, or he'll call me and we'll talk about it, and I'll initiate a phone call. And because I travel a great deal, sometimes I'll be in the area where that artist lives, and I'll actually go and meet with them and just sit down. Like I said, we just want a discussion and find out, again, like what Howard was describing, what is their passion? What prompted them to seek our label out, and what is it about the music? And then through that discovery process, we can understand what their dream and vision is for what it is they really truly want to do with the music. And we do sometimes get individuals that have one album of music and that's all they can do. That's all they want to do. They just want to be on our label because we think we're, they're like, you're a cool label, we want to put our album out on your label. But that's not what we're about. It really is about the art and the music and tying all of those elements together, not just the sounds, but the visual as well. So that when you see an album cover from our label, you're going to imagine what the music is going to sound like. It takes you deeper. It's a much deeper relationship with what's going on. So
how are you able to develop sort of outstanding quality? I mean, I was mentioning the David Kaplan album. That is, the phone is great, the outside, the inside is beautiful, the quality is very good, the packaging is well done. I mean, I imagine that some years ago when the two of you got together and said, well, we want to create a record label that has, I don't know, the following 10 characteristics, right? And evolve over time. Feel free to elaborate in the process of the quality or the colors, or when selecting an image or whatever. For me, it's fascinating how the stuff, as I say, come from your factory to my home here in Virginia.
Well, I think I will answer very quickly, and then I know Howard has things he would want to say about it for sure on the technical aspects and things. But Howard is the original founder of this label way back in the early 80s. And I actually met him in 1982 when there was a group of individuals. And the whole goal, I think, from the beginning, and Howard, please correct me if I misspeak, was a group of, so that we could have like-minded individuals that were passionate about experimentation, experiential with the equipment and the sounds, and delving into how does it work? What can we create with it? And I think all of the original members, and I came on a little bit later, but I was with them at the very beginning, visiting and doing things because I was doing other music stuff. But what can you do with it, and how does it work, and how do you create all this? But it was all like-minded individuals who loved film and soundtracks and experimentation and musical passion to put together things, and the arts as well. So when you get that together, also the idea of creating music that is somehow going to affect whoever listens to it in a positive way, whether it be for a healing experience, or not for lifestyle, but over many years, we've gotten hundreds of communications, thousands, from individuals who had a terrible experience, an accident or something, and then they heard one of our tracks on the radio, and they send back and said, I didn't know what I was going to do, but this gave me hope. This gave me, I went and got the album because we had many people, we've gotten letters where someone was killed in an auto accident and the mother was distraught. And I mean, that to me is very, very important. It can be visceral, but the emotional aspect of it is what drives us, I think, to create for those people that for somehow it just does something for them. The music, yes, we do strive. Absolutely. Every release must be as better or better than the one that we did before. We're always trying to push the envelope in terms of what we're doing, not just with the visuals and the art, but the electronics or the music instruments or the creation, the compositions themselves. And we try to, I know Howard, you're a wonderful facilitator with that, because he'll speak to the artist, I'll speak to artists, and all of our team, the people we have, they will speak to the artist to try and find out, try and entice them to share exactly what they're feeling deep inside, to bring that forth so that it translates into what they're creating. How do you make a mountain breathe on an album? How do you bring that to life? How do you create a sound that is going to be alive when the listener hears it? We go pretty deep with some of this stuff, and each artist thinks differently, of course, but those are the things that when I'm an artist too, but if I'm thinking about it, I think of those things. How do you make it sound alive when it's pressed onto a CD or a vinyl?
Gotcha.
How does it pop out? See?
Excellent.
So
Feel free to elaborate, Howard, your side of the coin.
I go off the deep end sometimes, but really, truly, that's what the art's about. But Howard has more in depth on the actual technical parts that are so important.
Oh, so.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I don't know if it's one of those things you just start off saying, oh, we just want to achieve a certain standard or a certain level of quality, and that's our goal. I don't think it's that obvious. But I know early on it was a process of you get some equipment and you start to work with that equipment, and you try to figure out, okay, how do we make it sound better? You start hearing things in the microphones you're using or the recording process that you're using, and you're thinking, okay, well, we can do, we could do better there. And so we try to figure out how to do better. So you're doing better in terms of performance, you're doing better in terms of the songwriting, the actual compositional part of it. And then you're doing better in terms of the capture of it, the recording and mixing and then producing it. probably a couple things came to mind really fast. And you've made mention of, obviously Will Ackerman and Wyndham Hill. That's a clear example. For us, I think 4AD was another label that was a very clear example of saying, okay, here's somebody that's really, this is a label that is presenting things in a form and in a way that you just sort of knew, even if you weren't familiar with the artist, that you were just going to get a certain level of quality from it. So that was probably an inspiration. Early on, I would see, I'd be looking at what Steve Roach was doing, and Steve was getting his work, mastered in Los Angeles. And so I'm looking at this process and saying, hey, how do we get the sound to be to that level? Because there's something we're not quite connecting with. And so you try to find the different mastering people. And then if you can't really figure that out, then you basically do what other people have done, right? So in this case, we went to Danny Hirsch, just like he was, and tried, mastering in LA and seeing if we could bring the standard or bring the sound to what we were trying to do. And in that process, you also learn what you need to do better in terms of production. And then it starts to expose some of the weaknesses maybe in the writing and the composition. So, all of it just informs that whole process. And, eventually, of course, we went through a lot of different iterations of that and finally got to the point where it's like, hey, when it comes to electronic music, I just got to be doing the mastering myself. So I didn't want to be doing that, but that's what happened. And it was important because it helped also control the quality of what we were putting out. Because if you get 10 different recordings from 10 different artists, they're not going to sound the same. And more importantly, they're not even going to have the same quality. And there isn't a box that you can just run something through and all of a sudden it sounds good. I mean, there's places or people who sell it as though you can do that, but it doesn't really work that way. So it was something that we kind of got led to, okay, got to spend the time, got to learn it, got to spend the money. Same thing in the graphics, we went from the early era of doing everything optically and putting it together in a physical form, cutting and doing all the layup and everything else to produce, the visual part of it, to transforming into the computer era of producing graphics. And interestingly enough, that also was true for audio, was that computers in their earlier stages weren't very good. At least the computers we had access to weren't very good at the quality. But that changed. And as it changed, we grew into it. And then now in our current configuration, the team that makes up Spotted Peccary, we have a fantastic person who is really talented and really passionate about his visual art, and Daniel Pipitone. And he has championed it, taken it on. He's our art director, and he's just doing a fantastic job. And again, it's still talent. It still comes down to, everybody can use Photoshop, but it's what you do with it that matters. Everyone can use digital audio workstations on a computer at home, but again, it's what you do with it that helps, convey the magic that takes it to that next level, the next 10 or 15 or 20%. And then we still have to get back to the artist level and say, okay, how do we make your music? How do we get there? Where can we go with this? Is this really the best that you think it can be? And it's so interesting that most people, we're not here. My role isn't to tell an artist what to do. It's to help them have the best relationship they can with the music, which is kind of like their child. So it's almost like a role of a counselor. It's like, well, let's talk about what's happening here. What could this be? And so we have conversations about it, and we see what we can do to bring out the best possible result. But the whole idea is to actually make that experience be as deep and meaningful and authentic from the artist creation through the recording process, the quality that's involved there with the tools that we have available today, to now we get into production and how do we make it sound as good as we possibly can and look and be presented as good as possible with all the tools that we have. And that's really the defining factor. And it doesn't make a difference whether it's just going to streaming or whether it's going to go to vinyl or whether it's going to go to CD, because, you know, the physical products are really just conveyance. Well, vinyl and CDs are very different, but really it's just a way of conveying the music. You know, it in itself isn't the music. A vinyl record isn't the music. The music is the music. It's just on a record or on a CD or out there in the streaming world. So how do we present that so that the most number of people can hear it and appreciate it and get the biggest experience that they can from it?
Yeah, man, that's a beautiful answer. The technology have changed so much in the last, I don't know, 15, 20 years. Did you guys ever go back and re-release an album from whatever Johnny that you guys did it in 2005? That was a great album, but perhaps the technology was not there to the level that is right now, and try to ratio that, and, you know, with the help of the artist, you know, now it's new technology to do XYZ. Are you interested in us, you know, doing a version 2 or version 3 of your album? Because we did okay, we sold that album a lot, you know, it was well perceived.
It's never really about sales, interestingly enough. It's really about, again, and that's a crazy thing to say, but it's really true. It's really about the art. Yeah. It's always about the art. The most important thing is the authenticity to the art. We absolutely have to believe that when we do a really good job, when we present it to the best possible way and people resonate with it, then we've done our job. That ultimately will translate to what we call sales. Mm-hmm. But we differ from a lot of labels in that way, because our focus isn't about the bottom line. It isn't about making money. It's really about making good art. And if we can stay true to that, then the fruits of those labors work themselves out. Huh. So the decision to go back and remaster an album is really about, there were things that we all experienced in the earlier stages of digital audio that all of us experienced as listeners as well as artists, that left us in a place of really not feeling totally fulfilled. And so now with more modern tools, as it has been perfected and reworked, and, you know, the analog chain became a more important part of the digital studio, and now we're learning how to use all these tools, whatever tools that are available to us today, and we figured out how to integrate them and how to use the best of all of it to accomplish a better result. That's the question: can we or should we go back and remaster something, reproduce it in a way that will allow more of what was already there come through? And that's the goal. You know, it's not to go back and mess with it too much. We're not trying to, you know, literally doctor and change everything because we can. I think that one has to be really careful with that. You know, we have to respect the history of what it has been. But I do think it's important to allow people to, and even as artists, to be able to express, to be able to hear back the things that are hidden in the recording. And that's been true for many of the Spotted Peccary releases that we've had a chance to go back and remaster, and we have plans to do more of that with Spotted Peccary. That's also been true for a lot of the stuff that I've remastered for Steve Roach. And it's been absolutely an incredible experience. I mean, it's like, you know, are we tampering with art when we say, hey, we're going to go and we're going to clean this film and this coloration of hundreds of years of smoke and other things have changed the colors of the Sistine Chapel? I mean, are we messing with something, or are we allowing what is already there that's now hidden by all of this time to be removed, and now we get to see the original art again? And it's probably an endless debate, But the goal is really that unveiling, that unmasking, and to make it more vibrant and true to what the music